In today's video, I am going to show you how I make these fun, whimsical, and wonderful little bumblebee granny squares. It seems to be that I am making several insect, or rather granny critter squares these days, and so I am keeping the colorways kind of similar. So, for example, last critter square I made was the dragonfly. And this critter square is a bumblebee. And then a critter square that I made, a little more than a year ago, is a Granny's Garden spider. So really, I think what I'm winding up doing here is I seem to be going in the direction of making blocks or squares, granny squares, that incorporate the various different kinds of critters one might find in Granny's garden. So I think we'll just keep going with that theme. I'm eventually going to go back and make a couple of more of those spider squares, but in a matching colorway to the last couple of critter squares that I've made, and eventually turn it into an Afghan. But until then, it's going to be blocks or squares, these critter squares that will show up from time to time in my channel. So let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Wyrd siblings, weirdlings, and just simply fun people. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me to provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns, and lacy motifs. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. So this project is really basically a scrap project. You can use any yarn you'd like to within the parameters of the weight I'm going to give you. Really, everything's basically a weight 4, except for the yarn I'm using for the wings, and that's a light 3. You're probably not going to have any problems locating these yarns, and in fact, I would guess that most of you out there interested in doing this granny square is going to have yarns that are perfectly appropriate for this project. For today, I am going to be using a black. Now, this is a Super Saver black. Then I'm going to use an orange. This is also Super Saver, and this orange, I believe, is called Pumpkin. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's pumpkin. Oh, wait, no, it's carrot. Now I have this right here. And this particular yellow I will be using is also a Red Heart Super Saver. And this is called Cornmeal. In addition, I have this blue, this light blue. And I'm not entirely sure what it is called. Might have to refer back to the Dragonfly Granny Square video in order to see what name the blue is. Next, I will be using this Stylecraft yarn in Aran weight, which in the US is basically the same as a 4 weight. And this is their Impressions collection, and the colorway for this is going to be Grand Canal. And then last but not least, I'm going to be using Premier's Everyday Dots, and this one is called Confectionary. This is my light 3, and this is what I will use for the wings. Most of these colors are basically the colors I used on the Dragonfly Granny Square. Next, I'm going to need a pair of scissors, and you may or may not decide that you will need a stitch marker, and then of course a yarn needle. And finally, I'm going to use 2 hooks. The larger size hook is going to be a size 7. You might use an 8, depending on your gauge and what kind of hook you have available. But basically, it's a 4.5 millimeter. My tulips are always made just slightly on the larger side, so keep that in mind. And then I'm also going to be using a size 6 or a 3.5 millimeter. This is the one I will be using for my 3 light yarn. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to be using the orange for the body of this bee. As you saw in the introduction, I had an orange center part for one granny square bumblebee, and I had the yellow, or rather the cornmeal color, for the center part of the other bumblebee granny square. So you do you. You choose the color that you would like to best use for the center part of your bumblebee. And I'm going to begin by making an adjustable ring. And I'm going to chain 4. So I have my first chain completed, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to double crochet into the ring. And then I'm going to chain 1. Now keep in mind, this 4 chain is going to stand for 1 double crochet plus a chain 1. So far I have 2 double crochets and a chain 1. I'm going to follow this pattern 10 more times. So again, double crochet and chain 1. Now I'm going to do it 9 more times. And when I've completed all 12 of these stitch combinations onto this adjustable ring, I'm going to join and fasten off my first color. So I've completed round 1. And we're going to move on to round 2. And for round 2, I'm switching over to black. And in a chain 1 space, doesn't matter where you choose to tie this into, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to double crochet in the same space. Next, I'm going to chain 2. Now in my next 1 chain space, I'm going to double crochet 2 together. So basically, I'm going to start my first double crochet, and then I'm going to move on to my next double crochet. And then I'm going to crochet those 2 together. And then I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to repeat that in each of the next single chain spaces all the way around. And then I'm going to fasten off. So again, I'm going to begin my first double crochet, and then I'm going to make my second double crochet, and I'm going to crochet those 2 together to create my 2 double crochet together stitch. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do it again in my next chain 1 space. Begin my first double crochet, and then begin my second double crochet. And I'm going to double crochet, or rather crochet those 2 together, and then chain 2. I'm going to continue in each of the next spaces until round 2 is completed. So far your piece should look something like this. Now next I'm going to tie in the cornmeal color, my yellow color here, and I will tie that into pretty much any chain 2 space. And then I'll chain 3. And then I'm going to double crochet twice. So 1 and then 2. I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochets together, and in this next chain 2 space I am going to double crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. And again, I'm going to double crochet 3 in each of the next chain 2 spaces all the way around. And when I've completed round 3, I'm going to go ahead and fasten off my yellow. So now I'm going to begin to show you how to do round 4. Now, round 4 is going to be a little different than the previous rounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find any of these 2 double crochets together, and I'm going to start in any one of them. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and tie my black in. Just like that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to loosely tie that over the space between where the 3 double crochet clusters sit on round 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to treble crochet 2 more times into that same stitch. So 1 and then 2. So just like that. And then I'm going to go to the next space here where the 2 clusters meet. And I'm going to treble crochet 3 into this 2 double crochet together stitch there on the second row. So it's going to be my first treble. Second treble. And my third treble. And I'm going to do that again 5 more times. So I'll end up with a total of 7 of these 3 treble crochet clusters. So now this is what your piece should look like. Now we have the 7 clusters of 3 treble crochets. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to single crochet in the next 12 stitches. So 1, 11, and 12. Then I'm going to turn my work. And in the next single crochet, so not this one that I've just turned from, in the next single crochet, I am going to do a 3 yarn over bobble. So that's going to be a yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull up. So I've got my 3 yarn over bobble, and then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull that through to complete that first 3 yarn over bobble. And I'm going to do that 4 more times. So I want that bobble 5 times total. So 1, 2, and 3, second 1. And so I want to do 3 more of these. Now, once I've made 5 of them, I am then going to single crochet in the very next stitch. And I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to, in this very next stitch, not the stitch that I'm currently in, but in the stitch after that, I am going to do a 5 double crochet popcorn. So what that is I'm going to make 5 double crochets in that stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then for the popcorn stitch, what I then do is I take my hook and I insert it into the very first double crochet that I made. And then I pick up the loop I just dropped and I pull that loop through, and that gives me my popcorn stitch. So then I'm going to then skip this next stitch and I'm going to do another 5 double crochet popcorn into the stitch after that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so again, I'm going to remove my hook. I'm going to insert it into the first double crochet of that cluster. I'm going to pick up my yarn. I'm going to pull that through, and that is my second 5 double crochet popcorn stitch. So now I have my 2 popcorn stitches. I'm going to start working my way down the other side of the head and top part of the body of the bumblebee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by making just a regular slip stitch, or I guess we can say chain 1 really. And then I'm going to place 3 slip stitches down the side of this bobble. So I'm going to have slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, and then 3 right down the side of there. And then I'm going to single crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to fasten this off to the top here of this treble, or rather the third chain of this chain 3 right here that took the place of our treble crochet. So your piece should look like this now. Moving on to round 5, I'm going to switch over to my blue. I'm going to work in the back bar of the next stitches. So basically that's going to be all my stitches from this single crochet here all the way around to this last single crochet as we work our way around. And then when I move into my slip stitches, I'm going to single crochet 10 single crochets around the head and top part of the body of this bee. So I'm going to begin by working in the back bar. So this is the first, or the front loop right here, the back loop, and then the back bar is right here. And this is what I'm going to be working in. So I've tied in, and I'm going to single crochet into that same stitch, and I'm going to continue to single crochet in the back bars all the way around, and that should be 40. A count of 40 single crochets. So now notice that from this single crochet all the way around to this single crochet, you're technically only going to have approximately 31 stitches from round 4. However, you want 40 blue stitches. going from this first single crochet all the way around to the last single crochet of this round, or the previous round, which was round 4. So you can see that I basically single crocheted in the back bars, and then I evenly picked up an additional stitch, an additional 9 stitches as I went evenly around. And typically I did that right here in the back stitch of maybe the space between each of these clusters. So that's just kind of a little bit of a tip, because you're going to need to fit in those other 9 stitches, and you're going to best be able to do that between this treble and the last treble of round 4. So, long way of saying, you should have a total of 40 single crochets so far for round 5. Next, I'm going to evenly single crochet 10 single crochets from this part of the body and head all the way around to this part of the body and head. So I'm going to work in the slip stitches. I'm going to work along the edging of the stitches. So I'm going to begin here. You can see just like right in here, and I'm going to begin. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to get this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm just going to go right in here. Here, let me do this a little differently. So I want to keep it consistent, so I'm going to just kind of pick up this back stitch right here. And then I'm going to join right here into this very first single crochet. And that's going to give me a total of 50 single crochets all the way around. Next, moving on to round 6. So I'm going to continue to work with this same color, this same yarn. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to half double crochet into that same stitch. And I'm going to half double crochet into the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The stitch after that, I'm going to increase my half double crochet. So I'm going to place 2 half double crochets into that same stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet 13. 1, 2, 3, 12, 13. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to increase. I'm going to place 2 single crochets into that same stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet 13 again. So 1, 2, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Next, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. So I've got 1 and 2, so I've increased my half double crochet. Next, I'm going to half double crochet 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so that brings me all the way back around to this part of the head of the body. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to half double crochet another 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. Next, I'm going to slip stitch 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to half double crochet 3 more times. And I'm going to join. So you should have a piece that looks like this so far. And you should have 54 stitches at the completion of round 6. To begin round 7, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to half double crochet in that same stitch. Next, I'm going to double crochet in the next stitch, and then I'm going to treble in the stitch after that. In the next stitch, I'm going to place 3 trebles into the same stitch. Next, I'm going to make another treble. I'm going to make a double crochet, then a half double crochet, another half double crochet, and then one more half double crochet. Next, I'm going to place 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So basically an increase. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch and one more single crochet in the stitch after that. And then next I'm going to half double crochet. And then I'm going to make a double crochet. And then I'm going to make a treble crochet. And then the next stitch, I'm going to place 3 treble crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And the stitch after that is going to be a treble crochet. And then a double crochet. And then a half double crochet. Next, I'm going to place a single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so far you have something that looks like this. You can see. Then we're going to move on to the next side of our square. So next I'm going to place a half double crochet and then a double crochet and then a treble crochet. And in the next stitch, I'm going to place 3 treble crochets together in the same stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. So now in the next stitch is going to be a single treble crochet, and then after that a double crochet, and then a half double crochet. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to do a single crochet, and then in the stitch after that another single crochet. And then of course in the stitch after that I'm going to increase. So I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this next stitch. Then I'm going to half double crochet 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to move on to a double crochet in the next stitch. And then a treble crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 3 treble crochets. 2 and 3. And of course, in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a single treble and then a double crochet in the stitch after that. Then the next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. So now next, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to decrease, and I'm going to make 3 decreases. So my first decrease, that's 1. And that's 2. And that's 3. And then I want to single crochet 2 more times into the next 2 stitches. And then at this point, I'm going to join, and then I'm going to fasten off. So moving on to round 8, you can really start anywhere you want. Just going to tie in your yarn that you may be using as a border. So realistically, you could be using the same yarn that you've been working with, or if you've used an alternative colorway like I have, what you're going to border your piece out with. And so basically, I'm just going to tie this in anywhere. And then I'm going to make my chain 1 and then a single crochet into that same stitch. Now, I am going to single crochet each stitch except for the 4 corners. And so as you can see, I'm now at my corner. And in my corner, I am going to single crochet 3. I'm going to continue to single crochet in each stitch until I hit the next corner. So now once you've completed that, you should have 14 single crochets across between each corner, and each corner you should have 3 single crochets in each corner, and then 14 single crochets between each of the corner stitches. Next, after you've joined, I'm going to fasten off and move on to the next step of the bumblebee. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the antenna, and I'm also going to close the 2 popcorn stitches here at the head together to make and form the head of the bumblebee. So I'm going to make the antenna and I'm going to form the head. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my black yarn. I'm going to leave myself a tail because I'm going to need that for sewing. And then I'm going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to come here at the 2 top stitches of each popcorn stitch, like so, and I'm going to slip stitch those 2 stitches together. Maybe. Let me see. Okay, here we go. And then once I've slipped it together, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to chain 5 more. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what I'm going to do here is I'm then going to leave myself a little bit of a tail because I need that for sewing as well. And pull that through. So now I have the head together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each antennae and I'm going to just weave it in here to the corner or just under the 8th row, or rather in the round of 7. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to weave in the ends, and then I'm going to have my antennae that's going to look like this. So now once you've completed your antenna, you should have something that looks similar to this. And now I'm going to move on to the bee's stinger. So basically what you want to do is you want to come right here to where you have these 3 trebles that sit in between these 3 patches of yellow on either side. And you're going to take your black once again, and you're going to tie it right here into that first treble. And once you've tied it in, you're going to chain 3. And then you're going to come right here to the center. So it's going to sit here right here between the 7th and the 8th. Single crochet here along the bottom. At 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then here's the 8th. So we're looking at right about here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just insert my hook behind the bar there. And I'm going to pull right through. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to double crochet in the next stitch. Just like so. And then again, I'm going to make another double crochet right there into that 3rd treble crochet. And then I'm going to just cut off my yarn And I'm going to weave my yarn right back here into this same stitch. And that will give me the shape of my stinger. Now once your stinger is all woven in, it should look something like this. And your piece should start to look something like this. Now we're going to move on to the wings. Now for the wings, I'm going to move over to my 3.5 millimeter hook and to my light 3 weight yarn. And I'm going to begin by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then that very first chain, the 4th chain from the hook, I am going to place a double crochet. So next I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to place a double crochet right there into that space. Make my double crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to place another double crochet right at the top of that 3rd chain. So now I have something that looks like this. I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to turn my work. And then in that chain 1 space, I'm going to double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then in the next space, chain 1 space, I'm going to double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to place a double crochet again into the 3rd chain. So now my piece looks like this. I'm going to continue on just like this until I basically have 8 rows. So I currently have 3. And then of course I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to double crochet into the next chain 1 space. And I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to double crochet into the next chain 1 space. And I'm going to chain 1 and double crochet into the next chain 1 space. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to double crochet into the 3rd chain. And then I'm going to chain 4. You can see I have 4 rows. And I'm going to make 3 more rows just like this. And then things are going to change a little bit for the 8th row. So I'm going to meet you right back here just before we get started on the 8 rows. So continue to do the first 7 rows just as I've instructed and that you've seen me do right here. Okay, so now I've completed the first 7 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to completely skip the first chain 1 space, and I'm going to double crochet in the next chain 1 space. And then I'm going to chain 1 and double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and chain 1 and double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and then chain 1, double crochet in the next chain 1 space. I'm going to chain 1 and double crochet in the next chain 1 space. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to join right here into the 3rd chain. Then next I'm going to turn my work, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet 4 in this first space. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to chain 2 in the next, chain 1 space, and I'm going to chain 2 in the next, chain 1 space, and then I'm going to chain 2 in the next 1 space, and then I'm going to chain 2 again in that next chain 1 space, and then I'm going to single crochet 4 in the next 4 chain space. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, in each row, I'm going to single crochet 2 in each of the spaces until I get down here to this very first space at the tip of the wing. So I got 1 and 2. And then again, 1 and 2. And then here at this last space, here at the tip, I'm going to single crochet 5 single crochets in that space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then again, I'm going to single crochet 2 in each of the spaces for each row, all the way back to where I began. And then I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to join and then fasten off. And I'm going to leave a nice lengthy tail, maybe 12 to 18 inches, because that's what I'm going to use to sew the wing on. So this is basically what you should have for your wing. I'm going to make one more of these and then sew them on to the bee. You're going to sew them on about here. I'll have one here, and then I'll have one here. So now that I have my wings sewn on, you can see the inside or the back of the square and the front of the square. This is what your piece should look similar to. And of course, this seems to be turning into a series of something kind of like a grandma's critters garden, right? So I have a spider granny square, which I think I'll make a couple more of these in colors that are going to be more appropriate for the color scheme that seems to be evolving from these bees, and then from the last video where I showed you how to make a dragonfly. And then I have another video that I put out, a little more than a year ago. This happens to be June 2024. And that one has a spider, but the colorways are different. So I'll probably make up a couple of squares with a matching colorway to this so I can incorporate it all into a kind of Afghan of garden critters. At least that's my thought process. That's where I think I'm going to be going with these squares. If you want to follow me along with me with that, just remember to subscribe so that you can be notified when these new insect critter squares, granny squares, are uploaded. And I'll be certainly putting these blocks into a playlist specifically for this. So if you just want to check back to it from time to time, it'll be available for you. So with all that said, I certainly was really happy to have you today. And until we meet again, stay creative, stay amazing, and always remember to weave your own Wyrd. Bye-bye now.